More and more people are appreciating a nice walk in a cemetery, from the little quaint ones to ones that are designed like a public park. This video is designed to build familiarity of what you're actually seeing when you're in the cemetery, especially if it's a new adventure for you. So we're going to talk about the different types of monuments you'll find, and imagery and artworks on the stones themselves, and the types of burials that you will find. Let's get started. So one thing I'm not going to do here is be Captain Obvious. Everyone's going to know what a cross means. Everyone pretty much knows what an obelisk is. You're going to see certain imagery on stones that reflect the person that's buried there. You're going to see on some stones, like for example, the Buffalo Bills logo or the Sabres logo. You're going to see like fishing imagery. You're going to see like hunting imagery, possibly a deer. So that just tells you that the person that was buried there is an avid fisherman. So we're not going to go completely off the rails and look at each and every stone and tell you what you can actually figure out just by looking at the monument itself. So what we're seeing here is easily one of the sadder monuments you're going to see in any cemetery. Whenever you see a marker that has a lamb on it, what that designates is the burial of a young child. In this case, the name is Ashley Bushnell Niles. She was born December 10th, 1964. She passed away March 15th, 1965. There will be another variant of this where it will simply be a block stone and there will actually be a statue of a lamb on top of it. Either way, this typically marks the final resting place of a young child. So when you come across the image of a urn on top of a statue, whether it's actually etched on the stone itself or like this one, it's actually on top of it, it just simply means deep mourning. This particular statue belongs to Frank C. Partridge, born 1879, died 1944. He is joined here by Eleanor Taylor, born 1901, passed away 1995. Also, Ida Kay, his wife, is buried here. Born 1879, died 1960. What we have here is a good example of a cenotaph. A cenotaph is a burial marker that honors an individual who's not actually buried at this location. This marker honors Giuseppe Verdi. Giuseppe Verdi is credited with having invented the Italian national operatic style. He was born the son of a poor grocer in La Racanto, Italy. Verdi began composing at age 13. So when you come across a marker that has a column that looks like it's broken off, it actually represents a life cut too short. Another similar marker you'll see will look like a petrified tree that will also look like it's been cut in half or cut down. Both of the markers indicate a life cut too short. So this particular marker marks the final resting place of Jenny C., the wife of James T. Van Deventer and daughter of Cyrus and Catherine E. Clark. She was born July 21st, 1831. She died May 3rd, 1856. So this structure here is a columbarium. A columbarium is simply a small structure that houses the final resting place of loved ones who have been cremated. So when you see the names here, that means there's actually an urn in there with the ashes of the deceased. A columbarium can come in various different sizes. This here is an example of a small one, but when you see this, you'll know that's exactly what this is. Some mausoleums also have entire sections that are considered columbariums that house nothing but ashes. Now, something like this that you may come across is called a dedication marker. No one is actually buried here, but a marker like this will actually commemorate an event, notably an event in American history. This particular marker is the Battle of Bunker Hill dedication marker. Again, important to point out, no one's actually buried here. Across cemeteries in America, in fact, across cemeteries around the world, you'll see markers just like this. When you come across a marker that has a laurel wreath on it, it typically means victory, distinction, or fame of the individual buried here. The particular burial here is of William Buckley. It's kind of hard to make out when he actually passed away, and he must have some kind of fame attached to him. It's definitely something to look up and research. Let's take a look around here. Yeah, this is a very old marker. What you're going to notice is a lot of the older markers are the ones that actually have the imagery on them. That is usually very fancy and ornate and denotes a lot about the individual that's buried here. Here is another example of a stone that has a lamb. This lamb is actually on the very top. Once again, like before, this denotes a burial of a young child. As you go through the cemetery, you're going to find countless images of angels, whether they're etched onto the tombstones or whether they're statuary art. The angel represents sorrow, mourning, or guiding the soul to heaven. This particular monument belongs to J.M. Richmond. His proper name is Jewett Melvin Richmond. He was born December 9, 1831, passed away March 27, 1869. He's joined here by his wife Geraldine Hull Rudrow, wife of Jewett Melvin Richmond, born May 19, 1840, passed away January 21, 1825. You'll also see representation of the laurel wreath that we discussed earlier. Now, the next thing we're going to discuss is military service, and this is a great place to start. We have here is actually a cannon, representation of a cannon, and that represents someone who passed away during battle. This particular marker marks the final resting place of the oldest son of Samuel and Catherine Wilkinson. Now let's see if we can get some information on him here. He was promoted after death by the order of the President of the United States, March 13, 1867, as follows: to be brevet captain for gallantry and skill in the battle of the deserted house, Virginia. To be brevet major for gallantry and meritorious service in the battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. To be brevet colonel for gallantry and meritorious service at the Battle of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So this fellow here is a Civil War veteran. And he was actually promoted after death, majored many, many times. There's some more information on him. First Lieutenant Bayard Wilkinson, killed at the extreme front of the Battle of Gettysburg in the first day's fight, July 1st, 1863, commanding Battery G of the 45th U.S. Artillery. He was 19 years old, 1 month and 15 days. Something else you're going to see a lot of when it comes to military markers is folks typically put a flag. This flag here is, of course, the American flag, and it denotes service in the Union Army. What you may or may not see around, or I don't know if we're going to run into it, is actually Confederate battle flags, which you'll see marking final resting places of members of the Confederacy. So what we have here is another typical marker that you'd find marking the place of a veteran of the United States Armed Forces. This particular one marks the final resting place of Jack C. Bright, U.S. Army, 1928-1990. So you're going to see a lot of different looks to the stones like this one here. Typically they'll say the name, they'll say the branch of service, date of birth, and date of death. Sometimes you'll actually see the soldier's rank on the stones here, and possibly religious imagery saying what the, obviously what his religious beliefs were. But this is one of the many different types of military markers that you will find, at least the common ones. Now we're going to take a look at other military markers. Now this is a type of stone that I'm sure everybody is familiar with. It is the modern headstone of a military veteran. As you can see, it has several characteristics to it. It has a cross, it has the name of the soldier, it has his rank, and the war that he served in, and of course, his birthday and the day that he passed away. And a lot of times also, his loved one will be buried here with him. This here is Hayward T. Pelham Sr. He was a private first class U.S. Army World War II. He was born September 12th, 1927, passed away February 2nd, 2015. He is joined here by his wife Stella E. Pelham, born March 13th, 1934, passed away May 20th, 2022. I'm sorry, May 22nd, 2022. So, like I said, this one points out that also the war that this fellow fought in. He fought in World War II. What you'll see also is basically ones that say World War I and the American Civil War, and also the American Revolution. These stones are usually grouped together in military sections of the cemetery known as Fields of Valor. And typically will look just like this here. Usually with a dedication marker and an American flag. So there's a little glory. I'm going to take a little stroll here and show you what I mean when it comes to the wars that these fellows here fought in. Like this fellow here, Robert K. Harmon, fought in Korea. And you see he also has a different religious marking on his stone. I saw another one here that I was interested in. William Vincent Turner, his branch of service was the Navy. Now over here, this one points out that Earl Hamilton Griffin fought in Vietnam. He was in the U.S. Navy. And so on and so forth. Now, once again, here's another example of a type of stone marker for a U.S. veteran. This one belongs to James Patton, Company B, 49th Training Battalion, 1908-1965. This fellow here gave his service during World War II. Now, we're going to actually head over that way to see another type of marker. These here are more examples of military markers and the different, I'm showing the different styles that you'll see out there, so you recognize them as military markers. For example, this fellow here, Albert F. Binkert, Company H, 21st Engineers, born 1888, passed away 1970. He fought in World War II. Now this area that we're entering here is dedicated resting place of Civil War veterans. Now their markers are very similar to the other markers that we've seen here for veterans of the other world wars, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, but there is some unique things here that I want to point out that you'll see. So when you go to an area that houses like Civil War veterans, you'll typically see a large dedication marker like this one. This one says, "This monument honors the soldiers and sailors buried here who fought to save the Union, 1861 to 1865. So essentially, this here is a resting place of Union troops. Now, if you go down south, or even like in Ohio, certain areas, you'll see entire cemeteries dedicated to the final resting places of Confederate troops. And these are a lot older, so sometimes the information on the stones are a little more vague. But they typically say what company the soldier fought with, and of course they're going to give these soldiers' name, like S.H. McIntosh here, who was with Company D, 23rd New York. Looks like infantry. And of course it gives the day he was born and the day he passed away. Now, one thing I want to point out here is over here. You'll see this a lot, especially on Union cemeteries and on Union troops' graves. It says GAR. That stands for Grand Army of the Republic, which was, in a nutshell, Union. CSA, Confederate States of America, is for the Confederacy. I really don't believe that we're going to see any monuments here dedicated to the Confederates, although they also gave their last full measure for their cause. You'll also see things like this here. Now this denotes that this fellow here was an African American Civil War veteran. Looks like this was William Spencer. Again, these stones here are very old. Company 28, U.S. It's very hard to make that out. And of course it gives the day he was born and the day he passed away. I'm going to go over here. So here is a unique feature you may or may not actually run into in certain cemeteries. This marker here, although it's very hard to read, commemorates that this entire space is unmarked graves from the Buffalo Psychiatric Center and is also very similar to a potter's field. Now, what a potter's field is basically where the homeless and the destitute get laid to rest when no one claims them. They have no markers actually denoting who they are. It's actually very sad, but throughout the country and throughout many parts of the world, there are many, many potter's fields. This one is actually a part of the Cheektowaga Cemetery system. Let's see if we can get closer to this stone here and actually maybe yeah, it's very, very hard to read, but it was erected by the Temple Beth Zion. But it's definitely a field of unmarked graves. I believe, when I was able to read this marker here a long time ago, it's from the Psych Center. It also could be a lot of the unknowns that were buried here from various cemeteries across Buffalo when the cemeteries began to consolidate into the Forest Lawn Cemetery group. Either way, this here is nothing but unmarked graves. So when you come across a stone that has an open book or a Bible on it, what that means is divine wisdom, devotion, or a life of learning. So when it comes to the open book idea, it doesn't really make a difference if it's a Bible, if it's a Torah, or whatever it is. It pretty much has the same meaning. Now, one thing I do want to kind of point out here is we're in a Jewish cemetery. And the way you know that is you'll see a lot of the Star of David on the headstones. And obviously, looking around here at these stones, that's pretty much all you're seeing. Again, we're in a Jewish cemetery, so the Star of David is literally everywhere. It kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of like the Christian cross, the Celtic cross on the stones, and on a lot of the funerary art. Now, being out and about, I kind of wanted to share this. This marker here is dedicated to the memory of the Jewish war veterans of Erie County, who so nobly served their country. This plot is established by the County of Erie in grateful acknowledgement of their honorable service. So let's take a look at some of these stones, because these here are actually more burial markers here for the military. Let's take a look. So here we have a World War I veteran, Private Martin J. Kleiman, Company F 2nd Battalion, 5307. Looks like a commo unit. And it looks like they go kind of back this way as well. Let's take a look over here. Yep, we have World War II, Leicester Post, 325th. Looks like a tac squad. AAF, possibly the Air Force. 1918, 1949. Kind of want to go over here a little bit. Kind of goes back to the Grand Army of the Republic idea we talked about earlier. Edward E. Joseph, 20th Massachusetts Volunteers, 4th New Jersey Volunteers, 1835 to 1936. So what we're coming up onto here is what would be considered a standard mausoleum. Mausoleum is an enclosed structure that houses one or more members of a certain family. This is the Gibbon Mausoleum, and it's adorned with some Egyptian art. Often pretty difficult to get a look inside of them. Usually they have like stained glass on the one side. Now, I don't want to use the word small mausoleum in conjunction with this because it's a pretty good mausoleum. This is not to be confused with the much larger mausoleums that we'll show you later on. So this stone here, we see imagery of the butterfly. The butterfly stands for resurrection or the fleeting nature of life. This is the Sternberg Monument. Martha Sally, 1929 to 2022. Philip, 1928 to 2008. So on this adventure, we found this building here. It's another, looks like abandoned old broken down synagogue. There was a much larger one here that I think got torn down that we thankfully have video of. So let's see if we can get a peek in there. much as I can without losing my phone. Mm-hmm. Well, someone obviously broke into there. They must miss the other one. You never know what you're going to come across on these adventures. You're not going to be able to see in there.
The tree with the...
Okay, so coming out of there into this, it's a classic example of the tree stump that's been cut. Now, just like the column that looks like it's been cut, what this represents is a life cut too short. This is Rose Rodello, born 1896, died the third day, Passover, 1930. Again, a life cut too short. Okay, along here, there's a whole entire forest of them. Some of these have pictures on them.
He was 16, I think. He was 16 or 18. I think 16.
This is another fellow, 1912, 1941, Ben Posterman. Over here. Julius Chazin, 1932. This fellow was 16 years old.
She's 18.
Annette Kaiser. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this here is actually a representation of ivy. This means friendship, immortality, and eternal life. It's on the stone of Israel Trachtenberg. We have a photo of the fellow here. He was 65.
Yeah, I saw your outfit on.
Edward Polanski, yeah, he served. 1893 to 1949. Probably World War I. And of course, there again, we see the urn, which is a symbol of mourning.
How old was he?
Math is hard. He was born in 1893. He passed away in 1949.
Might have been the first.
And over here is more samples of ivy. On all these here.
That's definitely pretty cool. It preserved the picture.
So here's a little something I've never seen before. I really believe this fellow here might have been a carpenter too, because I see the brick and I see a piece of flooring. So this is Mr. Milton Zubin, born January 22nd, 1931, passed away July 15, 1995. What makes this interesting, and this is something I've never seen before, is this. At first glance, you wouldn't think much of it, but voila. It opens up to a picture of Milton, and it helps preserve the picture.
Sure.
So it won't get as weathered as bad because it's covered. So we're just going to go ahead and close that up. That was neat. I've never seen it before,
Yeah,
ever.
that's why I said, you must open up.
Yeah.
You see the guy, sugar something,
Sugar daddy?
it was sugar something, sugar father, sugar something. It's back over there.
So here we have the stone of Ruth Sarah. She was the daughter of Samuel and Adela Newman. 1919, 1932. What we see represented on her stone is the image of a dove. The dove represents purity, peace, and the Holy Spirit. It's so sad. Children's graves are always so sad. So I'm wondering, this is like the first time I've seen it, but the second time I've seen this in this cemetery. I wonder if this is a version of the clasped hands. If it is, it means farewell, marriage, or the hope of reunion in heaven. Although these hands aren't clasped, they're definitely pointing upward, which could mean ascension to the other side into heaven. It's a unique symbol that I've never seen before, so I'm going to have to research this one a little deeper. It almost looks like the Hawaiian thing for love. It could be like the love symbol. Because I do notice that the two thumbs are touching. So it could be. So what I'm going to point out here is another way to recognize a Jewish burial. To the right, we have the image of the Hanukkah. To the left, of course, the Star of David. So in the absence of the Star of David, if you see the Hanukkah on a stone like this over here, it denotes a Jewish burial. Again, you see a lot of this in like Jewish cemeteries. Okay, folks, we figured it out. So this particular symbol here represents that the father or the mother or both were Kohanim priests. They were Jewish priests. That's exactly what this actually symbolizes. Kohanim priests. So that's what the mystery has been solved as far as this goes. Kohanim priests.
Are you sure? That's what. Oh, okay, there she is. Hey, she looks familiar.
So these are neat. I suddenly can't get enough of these. So this one moves to the side. Over here, this is the Yaloff family. This is clearly Jack. I'm going to put this back. This is...
Where's that stay? She looks
And this is Esther.
When did she die?
2000. So, if you've ever wondered what the meaning of stones on top of headstones represents, it represents respect, remembrance, and lasting memory. So when you see these headstones with little rocks on top, that's exactly what that means. Someone's coming in here and they're honoring their memory by doing so. Okay, so this is one of the more unique areas in this entire cemetery. This particular area has been changed a lot since I was here years ago. Last time I was here at this marker, there was actually trees and shrubbery almost hiding it. So it's been dolled up a lot to make it more accessible. This is actually crazy. Here lie buried cakes of soap made from the flesh and blood of our brethren, whom the barbaric Nazis inhumanely tortured to death in the years 1939 to 1945. So, underneath this marker, as it says, there's burieds of soap made from human beings. That's mind-blowing. I've been here many times, and it's always the most uneasiest part of this entire cemetery, is this area right in here. It's been cleared a little bit, but it used to be overgrown, and there used to be a lot of shrubbery. Now over here is like the other, it's a homemade mausoleum that somebody did as a labor of love to their loved one. Not sure exactly who's in here. And this is also kind of falling apart from what it was before. So I've tried before. There's no casket or anything like that to see on the inside of this, because the person is still buried under the ground. But this is back in the days when you could do something like this. Someone took and turned it into a labor of love and actually built their own homemade mausoleum, I guess you could call it, for their loved one. It's just hard to know exactly who is buried in here. That's the only problem, because it's so closely surrounded by other markers. I can't quite put a finger on who's here. There's definitely something to see. So here's something interesting to stumble upon. Found the final resting place of Buffalo's first African-American teacher, Miss Ida Dora Fairbush. She was born in 1869, passed away in 1945, which goes to show you'll never know who you're going to stumble across touring your local cemeteries. So, I know I wasn't going to be Captain Obvious, but behind me is a public mausoleum. So, I kind of feel like I want to go in and explore. So, I'm going to also keep my chatter to a minimum, kind of out of respect, so it's a quiet place. So, let's check it out, shall we? So I am going to point out that every time I come into one of these buildings here, it's like walking into like a funeral every time. Now, mausoleums typically combine casket burials and cremation burials. So it's a combination of a columbarium and, well, like I said, actual casket burials. This one here is fairly small, but I'm just glad I have access to one. Now these have burials on the inside and the out. So this one looks like it's 3 buildings. We're gonna go explore this one. Unless, of course, I see people in one of them, then I'm just going to sit straight up, not invade their privacy. Doesn't seem to be any ashes in this one. This one seems like it's pretty straightforward. I've been in some mausoleums that are like going into a public library. There's like hallway after hallway after hallway. These ones are small, but it also serves my purpose. They also double as chapels too. Let's go around here. And we're gonna straight up not go in that one because there's somebody in there. And like I said, if there's someone in there, they're probably visiting a loved one, so I'm not gonna interfere with them. But this one here is just like the other one. So what we have represented here on this stone is that this fellow here was a member of a Masonic order. What's really cool about this one here is it breaks it down. A lot of time you'll either see the 3 chain links or the Masonic symbol. This one actually has both. Now the 3 chains on the bottom stands for the Independent Order of the Odd Fellows. You won't see that all the time spelled out like that on the stone, so you'll see IOOF. And of course that again stands for the Independent Order of the Odd Fellows. Let's see if I can get some information on the burial here. Not a lot. So here we go. So it represents the Aiken family plot. Julia, Harry. So odds are pretty good Harry here was a member of a Masonic order. So when you come across a stone with a crown on it, it represents victory and achieving the glory of heaven. So while we're here at this one, let's see if we can get in some information. This particular epitaph reads, "And they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre." Let's go around here and see if we can come up with whose this is. So I would say it's a safe bet that this marker represents the crown plot. Adelaide died December 22nd, 1911, and Augustus, who passed away April 7th, 1910. Now, granted, it does seem to be, crown seems to be the surname. However, that does not take away from the coincidence of what a crown means if you see it on a stone marker. So when you see a willow tree etched onto a stone, that's the sign for mourning and sorrow. So when you come across a stone that has the finger pointed upward, quite clearly that means ascension to heaven. It could also be interpreted as the soul has ascended. This particular stone belongs to John M. Maler. Maler. Looks like he passed away March 1826. Now, when you come across a stone that has clasped hands, that typically means reunion in heaven, whether it be friends or what looks like in this case, a husband and wife. So this particular stone belongs to Philip Zimmerman. I can't exactly make out the day of death. So over here, I have another example of a military stone. This one is a very old stone. I'm having trouble making out whose stone it is, but it looks like it was very likely Civil War, because I believe he was in a cavalry unit. Now, back over here, I kind of noticed that this is another much clearer example of the weeping willow on the stone. Let's kind of go back over here. I thought I saw what I call a combo stone. Here it is. So this stone's actually a combination of several different images. You have a dove and you have the clasped hands, which of course is a combination of peace and reunion in the afterlife. So there was one that I was really looking for, and I know they're out there. I just couldn't find it during my adventure. So if you come across a stone with a skull or a winged skull on it, it's a very old skull. You don't see it really too much more on modern stones. It means mortality, repentance, or ascension of the soul. Another one that I really couldn't find was if you see an inverted torch, that means a life extinguished, which actually makes sense. Well, and that'll do it. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be notified when videos drop. And please, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And we will see you next time.